Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. What kind of literal crap person doesn't tip their delivery driver and asks for 17 cents back? I hope our OP's restaurant blacklists her. If I were him, I'd outright refuse to deliver to that address ever again. So don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. You want your 17 cents? Okay. So I work as a delivery driver, pizza, burgers, subs, wraps, etc. Been doing it for over a decade. Before you judge, I managed to get a mortgage and own my home with this profession. Work hard enough and it's a solid gig. I've never worked a gig where you've been given pocket change, just singles. A couple years ago, before the whole COVID thing, I was on a delivery and her change was a couple dollars and 17 cents. I gave her the singles and bid her good evening. She said I didn't give her all her change. I told her we aren't provided pocket change, so don't have pocket change to give. She makes a big deal, threatened to call my boss and get me fired. I told her he'd tell her the same thing I did and repeated, we don't provide pocket change. She then takes a picture of me and my car and says she's going to call the police and have me arrested for theft. Over 17 cents. I laughed and said I might have some change in my car. Hearing this news, she sat down smugly and started eating her pizza. I throw my change in a cup holder sometimes. I was drinking a frozen water that day and there was a lot of water in my cup holder from condensation. So I counted out 17 soggy pennies. I walk back up to her porch where she's eating and give her 17 wet, soggy pennies. As I walk back to my car, I hear her tell her friend, "That bee gave me pennies." I just chuckled to myself and said, "Yes, I did." She still called and complained to my manager, who got a good laugh out of it. He told me I didn't have to give her pocket change and could have just let her call. I told him I knew, but she was being so rude about it, I decided to comply to the best of my ability. And our second story. The site director loses his job. This story took place almost 11 years ago, when I finished my apprenticeship and started working in a combined heat and power plant, CHP. It's not my compliance, but my actions indirectly lead to the situation. Also, this did not happen in an English-speaking country, so I'm translating position names and terminology to the best of my ability. I'll have to give some technical information and backstory so it'll make sense. I'm sorry if it's a bit boring to read. The CHP was a smaller plant with 3 boilers, one small one that would only produce hot pressurized water for district heating, and 2 bigger ones that instead would produce super hot and pressurized steam to power a generator, and afterwards the partially cooled down water would be used for district heating. During summer, when demand for heating was low, only the small boiler would be used and no electricity would be produced. There were 2 kinds of jobs you'd be assigned to, either maintenance, which had working hours from 7 to 16, or shift with a 3 by 8 hour shift rhythm. During summertime, there was only a skeleton crew on shift time, 1 shift foreman and 1 normal worker, while the rest of us would either be on maintenance or take the time off to reduce the amount of overtime you accumulate during winter. We had several people working in the office that would be ranked higher than us normal workers, but above the shift foreman were only like 3 people in the plant, one of which was the site director mentioned in the title. He was extremely full of himself since he had a doctorate and put on a big boss act, to the point where I thought he was the manager of our CHP branch and only recently learned how wrong I was. He had a bad habit of visiting the shift workers in the control center, talking to the foreman and fixing some settings for pumps and boilers, and then leave back to his office. The problem would be he would always be putting the settings close to the maximum or minimum of whatever he would fix. Like, for example, the output of the pump that pumps the heated water out of the boiler, stuff like that. So the people working on shift had to fix his mistakes after he left so the boilers would not shut down. Okay, with that out of the way, to the actual story and my indirect part in it. I had worked at the plant for almost a year, and after my 1-year contract ran out, I would leave for higher education in a completely different field, so I was somewhat running a 0 F's given mentality. I was on maintenance since it was summertime and got assigned to help the site director's secretary prepare a conference room for some meeting, and we got to chatting about some random stuff, but at some point the topic of the site director himself came up, and the conversation went something like this. Me: "So is the site director always so uptight?" Secretary: I don't know what you mean. He's a very nice boss and everyone in the office likes to work with him. Me. Oh, really? I never got that feeling when meeting him in the control center. Secretary. Really? How come? Me. Well, he just walks in, only talks to the foreman at best, and messes with our settings, which we have to fix afterwards, but nobody dares to say something to him, I guess. After that, we didn't say much more, and I realized pretty quickly that I may have gotten myself into some trouble by talking so openly with her, but I was so used to not really caring that much, and during the conversation, I didn't really consider my words carefully. Well, turns out the secretary told the site director what I said, though to this day, I don't know if she mentioned my name since I was never spoken to about this topic. The site director, however, was apparently pissed off enough that he walked into the control center the next day, did his messing with the setting, and then forbid the foreman to revert the changes because he knows better than anyone in this building how to run the plant. The foreman did as he was told and did not touch what the site director changed. After about 20 minutes, the plant had an emergency shutdown because the boiler ran out of water and was about to overheat. There were no repercussions to any customers since we had a big reservoir container at all times connected to the district heating net that could bridge the time until the boiler could be restarted, but any emergency shutdown has to be followed up by a team from the main office downtown, probably so they can pin the fault on someone should it come to some financial hit. The fallout that I witnessed at the time was mainly the site director being a bit of a laughingstock among the workers and him not coming into the control center for the time I was still working there. I left a few weeks later after my contract ran out and honestly didn't think too much of it until I met an old coworker of mine who's a shift foreman himself now. He told me that about half a year after I left, the actual branch manager had a meeting with all shift foremen, and a while after that, the site director was fired after it was discovered that he put almost all of his workload on the foreman and some of the office workers. Afterwards, one of the most senior shift foremen was offered some advanced training in order to take the position of site director, since they needed someone in the position that actually knows how to operate the plant, and they were doing most of his job already anyway. Site director sounds like the type who needs to tell everyone how smart he is and demonstrate his infallibility regularly. I'm sure he made life difficult for the office staff too. And our last story. My ex-husband and his new wife are choosy beggars. When my ex-husband and I divorced, I had a car from before we got married, and the car we acquired during the course of our marriage. Both were in my name because I had good credit and my ex had a bankruptcy on his. I got to keep all the debt, and my ex got to use the car I had from before we got married. I didn't need two cars, and of course, I can ask for it back when I want, right? We're on good terms, right? My ex-husband got remarried approximately 1 year after our divorce. I was his wife number 2. Now this new woman is wife number 3. Clearly, my ex has some problems, particularly with being alone. Shortly after I found out about the remarriage, I had some budget issues and needed to sell the car. My ex then told me, "We're currently homeless, and that would leave me without a way to get around." I said, "Then pay me for the car." To which the reply was, "I have no money." I had no way to force him giving the car back, and my ex has a way of hiding from problems that they don't want to face. I said I'd continue paying the insurance and car payment for a little bit, but I needed to clear up that part of my budget as everything else was tight, so hurry up and get it back to me. Lesson number 1 learned. Don't be overly nice to people who are no longer a part of your life. It'll bite you in the face like the monkey did to that woman in Florida. Fast forward to the registration coming due in July for the car. Where I live, it's a yearly inspection. I said, be either in this city or this other city when I come through for my vacation. We can get the registration done and you can keep driving the car. My ex did not show up in either city, and now the license plates are expired. My state does not have a grace period, so it'll be a hefty fine to re-register the car now. I cannot report it stolen since I know who has it, and legally they have a right to use it, even if they're not on the insurance. Fast forward to now. I made a motion to the court where we divorced. The court decreed that the car is mine. I have 30 days to get it back. But the responsibility for actually putting the car in my hands is that I have to go get it. In Iowa, of all places. I can't even make a vacation of it because there's nothing between Des Moines and my sister in Salt Lake City. I have to take 3 unpaid days off work and hope that it's not in too crappy of a condition that I can 1, drive it home, and 2, sell it and get out from under the loan. The new wife has the balls to say, "The divorce decree doesn't say anything about getting remarried. You should brush up on the law before demanding things from my ex." Lesson 2 learned: during the course of a divorce, when you think you're never going to get married again, the other person may do just that. Always separate all your crap at the time of divorce or make stipulations on what happens in the event of remarriage by either party. Why were they homeless for so long? They didn't want to be in Texas anymore. What about the new wife? Was she working? She's got highly specialized experience, has a perfectly clean license to do what she does in Texas. I looked her license up because in her field, you just either be very stupid or very picky to not have a job. Turns out she's just stupidly picky. What about my ex? Were they working? No, my ex is on disability for PTSD, personality disorders, including bipolar. Only worked outside the house for 8 months during the course of our 26-month-long marriage. Why did I ever marry such a person? Love is fucking blind. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.